Lights, camera, action. This is the Red Carpet Podcast with your hosts, Luke Andersen and Dane Salmons. Hi, and welcome to the Red Carpet Podcast. I am Dane Salmons, and I'm here today with my host, Luke Andersen.
Hey, hi.
This is obviously our first show, so we are both incredibly excited to get started and be able to kind of discuss the things that we've been kind of looking through, the things in the film industry, and of course, today's show we're focusing on Ad Astra at the back half of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we got some strong thoughts on this. I'm looking forward to being able to kind of break it down because we haven't discussed it at all.
No, we saw it together and we went our separate ways and forced each other not to talk about it with each other. And it's, I have a lot of thoughts, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we're both looking forward to being able to kind of discuss the show and kind of discuss our thoughts on that movie with each other and kind of just see what we both thought of it. But first, we're going to kind of just go through, kind of discuss discuss a few stories that we've looked through today. A few stories that we've kind of looked through throughout the week that we think are worth talking about. We're going to spend about half the show kind of discussing these big stories and kind of just giving our thoughts on them.
Right. And then after that, that's when we'll get into the review bit there.
Yeah,
cool.
Right into it.
Fabulous.
All right, so the first story, obviously the big story of this week, Spiderman, after having been taken out of the MCU from Sony, is now back into the MCU and now back in that cinematic universe.
It is. Yeah, this was, let me pull up the article here. Yeah, this was, it was a interesting back and forth. And it was interesting seeing the ways that both companies, well, mainly Disney, and I guess all the people working with Marvel were kind of using the heartstrings of the audience to try to get a better deal with Sony. Yeah,
it was really interesting to think about that. Like, kind of just, do you really think that this deal was able to happen and it was able to be brought back because of like the way that the audience had reacted to the news in the first place?
Yeah, it could have to do with that. It also could be that so this is what the actual the deal was here. I got it up here. Let me find it here.
Yeah.
This was okay. So this is from Variety.com. Just reporting from Brent Lang there. This is over the summer. News broke that Disney. Yes. Okay. Disney wanted the film to be financed on a 50-50 basis, with Phage remaining in a consulting producing capacity. Sony is believed to have proposed keeping the arrangement under the current terms, which stipulates that Marvel receives about 5% of first dollar gross and all merchandising revenues. So the merchandising aspect. Anyways, now what it is, it's Marvel and Disney will receive roughly 25% of the profits, according to insiders. Disney will retain its merchandising rights and will put up roughly a quarter of the financing. As part of the arrangement, Spiderman will also appear in one future Marvel Studios film. So that was the thing that stood out to me.
Yeah.
It's like they clearly had to change up the deal quite a bit.
Right.
So it sounds like they maybe just came to an arrangement, but also the idea of this is just one film in the future.
Yeah.
So what this actually ends up coming to in the long term, who knows?
It's interesting. Like, obviously, like, because now we get the Spider-Man back for 2 more movies, his own one more solo film, and then his one more appearance in just any MCU movie. And so it has the potential to kind of wrap up. If a deal doesn't come forward in the future, it gives them the opportunity to kind of wrap up his story arc and all of that. But also it's interesting because originally, like you said, the deal was supposed to be a 50-50, and that's kind of what like shut down and caused him to fall back in the first place. But now I feel like this 25%, that's kind of a win-win for everybody.
Well, yeah, and I think above all, one my take on the whole thing really is like, in a world where Disney is basically in control of copyright, it's like, if Sony wanted more money, I don't blame them.
Yeah.
And like it's one of those things where this is my dream. This is always my dream, is that Sony would have gone, you know what? Okay, yeah, you know what? You should be able to make your movies, and so should we. So Spider-Man is now in the public domain, and everyone can just make Spider-Man movies And you know what? So yeah, because we do think you should be able to, and we should be able to make ours, and everyone should be able to make theirs. It'd be insane.
It's just the number of Uncle Ben deaths in cinema history just skyrockets after that. Just like 20 Uncle Ben deaths a year.
Every college student is making like 30 different, just full length features of just Ben's death, like his like the dream sequence.
Oh no!
The David Lynch Spiderman movie that we've all been looking forward to is here. Okay, anyways, yes.
But I am interested. It's going to be interesting.
So we'll see what happens.
Because I mean, obviously, it's great to have him back in the MCU and kind of finish up, see that. I've spent so much time like dreaming of like certain villains in the MCU. Now we can see what they do, whether it be like Doc Ock again or something like that. They go with the Sinister Six route, but. I think what'll be really interesting is because Sony still has the rights to be able to include Spider-Man in their own movies and be able to insert him. So the odds of like Spider-Man appearing in like Venom 2 or something like that.
Yeah. I guess I am not. I've never been super keyed in on the MCU. Like I'll see every movie, but as far as like what the future holds, I think the more different the better. That's just random thoughts on Marvel in general right now, but whatever. We'll see what happens. Happens, and I'm sure that this is not the last time, at least this is my guess, that this isn't the last time that we're going to be having this conversation of Sony and Marvel hashing out deals.
Right. Now, on the topic of like superhero movies, and on the other hand, we got a new trailer that just came out this week for Birds of Prey.
Yes.
And the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. So the trailer came out this week, and I want to hear your thoughts on that because...
I mean, trailers are always so interesting. I think, actually just now thinking about, imagine, okay, now this is, I think, a different time in DC's history, or the DCU's history, but think of the Suicide Squad trailer. Like, that first trailer was pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
Like, that trailer was better than the movie. But I think... It's a situation where so watching this I'm always kind of like but with that being said, I feel like I've liked the shift that DC has taken to kind of really focus on like, hey, let's just let these people make the movies that they want to make. And so you have a pretty wide variety, even if it seems like the safety net of being kind of like the MCU, occasionally it sounds like Aquaman and Wonder Woman kind of got that way. Then you have stuff like Joker coming out, and it's like, it's because they just gave a filmmaker the go-ahead and said, do this. And the ridiculous title of this, everything being so over the top, I'm hopeful, we'll see.
It's very Dr. Strangelove-esque in its title. Like, what was it? Dr. Strangelove and How I Learned How to Stop Caring and Love the Bomb.
Exactly.
It's very strange, Dr. Strangelove with its title. Obviously, Suicide Squad is my least favorite film I've ever seen. It is... one of the only movies that I walked out of feeling angry that I spent money to go see that film. And this is a direct continuation of that universe. But it does feature Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, which was one of the few...
Probably the best part of that movie.
Yeah, one of maybe 3 bright spots of that film in the first place. So it's interesting, but it very much focusing on her... and focusing on that character as a good guy, which is a trend we've seen in the comic books recently, for better or for worse. So, the one thing I'm cautious about this because Suicide Squad was my biggest letdown ever, and obviously that's gonna seeing more in that specific like universe in that direction is gonna leave like a bad taste in my mouth as well, and kind of have me be cautious. But I will say there's some interesting spots. I mean, we got Margot back, and then Ewan McGregor playing the villain of this movie, the Black Mask. So
there was something. Okay, and I mean this in the lightest sense, and it's probably just because lately I've been thinking about Joel Schumacher's Batman movies lately.
Right.
Okay, and the over the topness of those is something that I think it's kind of been lost, and so something about this felt a little obviously Joel Schumacher's Batman movies are not great, not even good, some might argue, or a lot of people would probably argue that they're bad, but the ridiculousness of it, the comic bookness of it in its insane presentation I kind of appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And so this obviously seems way more gritty.
Yeah.
But I could go for a little bit more just ridiculous action in this stuff. And I think Harley Quinn, that's the way to go with that. Anyways.
As long as we don't have like the ridiculous like stop bad trailer music montages in this movie like we had in the in the Suicide Squad, that's a-okay with my book.
I blocked that movie out of my head. So. Oh dear.
Oh god.
Yeah, so are we ready to move on to the next bit?
Yeah.
Here?
What do you got for me?
So I guess if we want to go with another trailer here that stood out to me, I have to say, just kind of on the opposite end of this, would have to be Uncut Gems.
Okay. You blew my mind when you sent me that trailer.
Yeah. So that it is Adam Sandler, in this movie where he seems to be playing a dude who makes fake jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy who has made one too many bad deals, and it is all crumbling down around him.
Yeah.
And it is a drama, seemingly. And none of that should sound that interesting until you watch it, and the tone and the just... Talk about over the top. I mean, it's like this oppressive over the top style that I just the atmosphere of that trailer is incredible.
Right.
And so I'm very excited for that.
I need to look up more about this movie.
So I was trying to look into the like the director and such, and it was this very sort of, it was interesting because it says the so-and-so brothers. I hadn't heard of them, which
the Safdie brothers.
Safdie brothers, Benny Safdie and Josh Safdie.
What else have they done? Anything else?
They had to have, but
or is it like small independent projects?
Yeah, because that was the thing. Is I wonder if they've done things separately up to this point. It's one of those things where I didn't give it a whole lot of time, so I looked and said I am having trouble. I don't know who's actually taking a lead on directing this.
Right.
It looks like a lot of movies that looks like some art house stuff going down here.
Well, that's what blew my mind, because A24, it's being distributed by A24, which is one of my favorite distribution companies like in the world right now. When an A24 trailer comes out, it catches my attention instantly. Mm-hmm. Like, their horror stuff is incredible. Their little indie projects are incredible. Like, what do they do? The Florida Project, I think. Lady Bird. Room, I think. I might be getting some of these wrong. So if someone knows, and I just have just started throwing random movie titles out there, forgive me. But it is. They do some incredible stuff. And so, like, when you told me that this is a movie with Adam Sandler, I'm like, oh boy, what the heck is this? Mm-hmm. And then that A24 pops up, and like my mind gets blown. I'm like, they might get something out of this.
Yeah, so I just looked a little bit more into these directors, and it looks like they have worked together on previous films, because they are the known for section, at least on IMDb, is all we have. You can nod if you see anything. Also, we have Ryan behind the camera. So feel free.
Ryan. Hi, Ryan.
We got Good Time. We got Daddy Longlegs. We got The Black Balloon. And we got Heaven Knows What. So if you've heard of any of those.
Honestly, I think
okay.
I think the last movie sums it up for me. Heaven knows what they've done.
I mean, hey, you know what though? By all means, give art house directors Adam Sandler and
I'm always excited. I'm always excited to see new stuff and see new directors, and like having something like this being distributed by A24 and by Netflix internationally. It looks like it excites me especially because Adam Sandler is one of those actors that I hate, but I want to love him. Like, he's so bad in 9 out of 10 of his projects, and then every once in a while, that mysterious one will come out, and it's just actually really good. Like, what's it titled? The Merowitz Stories on Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, his recent comedy special was surprisingly good, too.
Yeah. Adam Sandler, as an actor, is one of those guys that stands out when he does really strong, straight-up dramatic roles. Mm-hmm. With, like, maybe a hint of comedy, but, like, when he's just being, like, his usual, like,
jorts.
Happy Madison, his usual Happy Madison movies. It's insufferable. And so seeing a guy like Sandler be able to step into more dramatic roles and be able to step out of that, I guess, maybe comfort zone. I don't know if it's a comfort zone or if it's just routine.
Who knows? I mean, I will be fascinated to see what this comes out as.
Absolutely. Yeah. Another movie I'm fascinated in, and I'm going to make this cheesy transition from Uncut Gems into Jewels. We're going to talk about Richard Jewell for a second. So this Richard Jewell, right? This one caught my attention. It's another Clint Eastwood directed film. Right. And Eastwood isn't my favorite director in the world. So for backstory, I was working in a movie theater when American Sniper was out in theaters, and American Sniper comes out, and every single person in my family above the age of 45 wanted to go see this film desperately. And so back and forth, people kept asking me if I could get them in to go see American Sniper for free. And so I watched American Sniper 9 times in the span of a month in movie theaters, to the point that I never wanted to see a Clint Eastwood movie, or especially American Sniper, ever again. And so Clint Eastwood and I have a complicated relationship right now.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with the stuff he's directed, so.
I know he did American Sniper. He did Sully.
Yes.
Was it Sully? Yeah, he did Sully.
He's made all the movies, and I'm like, I should see that. And
he makes the movies that focus on like American heroes and all that. And this one kind of looks similar to that, but in a different way, where we're looking at Richard Jewell, who was a hero before he was accused of being a bomber himself. Yeah. So
So do you know more about the story behind that?
I don't know fully. I did a little bit of research about it.
Yeah. What did you find?
I found a little bit, like, he was accused of being the bomber, that the news kind of perpetuated that story against him. It's kind of like We Did It Reddit the movie. I stole that comment directly off of Reddit, so
right. I think there is I'm always interested in these like stories where it's like the truth will come out. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, you just kind of have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Because there's times where it can be like it can be a liberating experience for whoever, or it can be the director had a thought about this thing and he wanted to direct it from this angle. And not like every director is obviously going to have an angle, and but there's times where I feel that, like, I think I, Tonya is a fantastic one where fantastic movie, you watch and you're like, oh wow, like I was like blown away by it, and I'm like, I wish I knew more about this. And so I learned more about it, and it was a situation where I'm like, well, this is great, this is fascinating, but also the amount of gray spots that they filled in to try to tell the story in this way, and try to portray Tonya in a certain Tonya Harding in such a light, it was like, okay, so this should be taken with a grain of salt, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, I'm also so unfamiliar with this that people might be looking at me and be like, this is pretty cut and dry. Mm-hmm. So anyways, we'll see what happens when it comes out.
I do think it's interesting. You have a point with like that political message with Richard Jewell, because Clint Eastwood himself is a very strongly conservative figure. I mean, he spoke to an invisible Obama, like during a...
Oh, right.
Yeah, he spoke to a chair that was supposed to have Obama in it. He's very, very conservative, which you can see, not always super strongly, but you can kind of tell in his movies. Like, his whole focus with a lot of the movies he directs is American heroes and like patriotism. Yes. American Sniper. I mean, it wasn't like a completely patriotic movie, but there were some very patriotic moments. I don't want to say it was like a pro-military movie, but there were some very patriotic, like, this man was a hero. The last shot of the movie is literally a picture of a soldier silhouette saluting with the American flag behind him. So it's very strong, and you can kind of see, in this, like, for like, whether it's true or not, I don't know fully on the story. It does focus, like, CNN were people that kind of spread this story.
Yes.
And so you can kind of guess that Clint Eastwood might want to take the opportunity to kind of say CNN bad. So
yeah, no, that you nailed it. That was my thing. I was like, I don't know anything about the story, but they definitely have an angle here. Like there was a very like media people looking at him like, how could you run this story? And it's like it's like, okay, all right, let's see how this goes.
It's a fantastic trailer though.
No,
it's edited.
I was gonna
beautifully.
say at the same time, like it looks really gripping. I'm very excited.
Yeah, and it's got some great stars. I'm actually excited to see this one.
Yeah,
it's got some good names in it. It's got some really good names attached to it with Sam Rockwell, Kathy Bates, Paul Walter Hauser. I haven't seen him in much. He was in Black Klansman. And for the most part, he was in Black Klansman and he was in I, Tonya.
I was gonna say,
but under like more comedic roles.
Yeah, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see him as a more serious, dramatic role.
He seemed like a solid actor in those. So yeah, I'm excited. Yeah.
So definitely, no, I'm looking forward to this. It's definitely one that I want to check out at some point when it comes out.
Yeah.
Let me see.
I'll just briefly. I just want to briefly end this little news bit.
Mm-hmm.
The Irishman is a 3.5 hours long, and so Scorsese is out here making 3.5 hour long movies. He's calling Marvel out, saying, "I'm making cinema, you're making theme parks."
Oh my God.
I am here for it. Just give it to me.
Well,
it's ridiculous. It's over the top, and I'm like, all right, sure. It's also sitting at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Exactly. I was gonna say it's successful. It's 100% at the moment.
And Netflix, like. The executives at Netflix are probably just like popping. They're just like, yes, we have a good one.
Yeah.
Like obviously like Roma's great, but the grand majority of the movies that have come out straight to Netflix, they're probably I'm sure overjoyed that they have this insane Scorsese movie coming to Netflix.
Absolutely. And so I'm definitely, this is obviously another one that I think everybody that has a little bit of like knows who Scorsese is excited for like these kind of movies. That's the one that everyone kind of has their eye on right now. 3.5 hours in all. Yeah. And is Netflix if Netflix gets a deal with Scorsese and says, hey, I want to make a 3.5 hour movie, are they going to really be able to tell him no?
No, and that's the thing, right? Is between one thing I've become abundantly aware of, I'll just briefly say it, between Joker and this, the nature of press and the nature of grabbing headlines is so huge. So Scorsese being out here saying some wild stuff about Marvel, obviously he's probably just saying, I don't think he's just trying to gin up press, but him out here saying that stuff, we got the 3.5 hour headline thing, which is totally going to make rounds. And then all the stuff with Joker, which we'll probably get into next time more. It's just like, anyways. Yeah. Well, it's fun. Press stuff is fun. They gotta let people know what's going down.
Obviously.
Okay.
So obviously these all look incredible.
Yes.
I'm excited. I think I'm excited for all of these. There's not one that's kind of like, okay, I'll take that back. I'm not exactly excited for Birds of Prey yet. I'm still I'm still cautious about that. Yeah. A little pessimistic, I'd say. But I'm excited for most of these.
Yeah, I don't see why not, right? It's like there are movies that have looked horrible that come out and they're incredible. And there's, it's the beauty of I try to take trailers for what they are.
Yeah, because one of my favorite movies of all time, I hated the trailer for it when I saw it. Thought it looked trash. And then it became like my favorite film.
What trailer was that?
Fury Road, actually.
I was about to guess. Was it Fury Road?
Yeah.
I remember seeing that trailer the first time being like, and then now it's freaking Fury Road. It's Mad Max Fury Road. Yeah.
And then, of course, there's been so many movies where the trailer blows my mind, and then you go see the film, and it's mediocre. Yes. So, anyway, obviously, these are big stories, but we're here to talk about Ad Astra that we saw. Was it Wednesday? Was it?
Yeah, it was Wednesday.
This previous Wednesday. For people that are watching this in a few weeks or listening to this a few weeks later, this was Wednesday the 2nd. So, so yeah, it's just breaking down thoughts on Ad Astra. I'll let you take the lead. I'm sure you were...
Sure. Yeah, I got some thoughts for sure. So as much as I'm tempted to go down just the line of like, the acting was good. Cinematography was really good. And I think all that is like super true. Like great. The craft here is fantastic. I think what I came away from it with, and I think it was the one thing I said to you, was that it seemed like a movie that was theme first, story second.
Yeah.
And I think any time where it is just telling a story, I think that story is a little bit weak.
Yeah.
But I think what it does is it lays on the theme to pull it. And I think there are ways they could have done things differently, which I'm sure will just be brought up, but that could have delivered that theme better. But at the same time, I think, I mean, if you come away from that movie and are not aware of like the theme, like I literally was just, it is about a man and his father. He's looking to his father. His father has grown obsessed with some scientific idea that has now been proven to be false based on, in this case, his research, or at least as false as he can tell.
Right.
But cannot let go of this belief. But that belief and the circumstances surrounding it are tearing apart, are leading to massive environmental and structural damage. And so he is having to confront these sins of his father, which is repeated over and over. It has very obvious lines to climate change even, but obviously mainly it's mainly about masculinity, obviously.
Right.
But this idea of there's this thing destroying the environment, it's like, okay.
Yeah. And I interpret it kind of like that, where it's like partially with that, but a lot of it focusing on like, to a lesser extent, the relationship between a father and son, and like the sins of a father, things like that. If you have issues with your parent, don't watch this movie, obviously.
Or maybe if you want to feel a little liberated, maybe. But
yeah, don't go watch this movie with your estranged father. That's what I'll say on that.
Yeah.
But I wrote like a little theme statement because I kind of thought about what the big theme of the movie is, and kind of the theme statement that stood out to me, especially just watching kind of like the character development of Brad Astra here, and of Brad.
Is it Major
Brad Astra, Brad Astra and Tommy Lee Jones' character was that the things that are directly in front of us are more important than the things that could be, and so not to focus on like what we don't have and what could be out there, but focusing on more on what we have in the moment instead of letting those things go. Because we see that a lot between the relationship between, like, Pitt throws away so many people in his life because he was obsessed with like being out in space and like being an astronaut. And even at the end of the movie, he says that, I think it it punches it home pretty strong that that he'll focus on the ones he loves now when his wife comes back, who is there for like maybe 30 seconds the entire movie. But like she comes back and he's like, I'll love the things I love. And then we got Tommy Lee Jones, who was so obsessed with finding extraterrestrial life that when Brad Pitt confronts him, he literally says that I didn't really love you guys that much, because he was so obsessed with his goal to be out there and see what was beyond the stars and going to the stars, which again goes back to the name of the movie, Ad Astra, where we got Brad Pitt, who has to learn to love the things that he has in his life, versus Tommy Lee Jones, who all he cares about is looking to the stars. So
yeah, no, I think you're right on there. And Brad Pitt, ahead of this movie, or it might have been the director, I don't know which, but it was well ahead. I'm talking like months ago. It literally was back in my mind. I was like, was this the movie where he said this? And I was like, oh, okay. Like it was where he said Ad Astra is a movie about masculinity. Yeah. And like he said it, and I was like, oh, okay.
Toxic masculinity.
And it's so overt. With like the starting thing of him reading like his mission statement of the way that he has been taught and instructed to see the world, of kind of saying, I don't remember exactly, but basically it's like I disconnect from those around me. And it's because it's a psychological evaluation, right? Yeah. It's monitoring his psychological state, because heaven forbid that he expresses an emotion, and that registers as conflicting with this just because it's amplified, right? And I think that's a big aspect of. I think it's both a good thing about this movie because it makes it clear what the theme is. Also, one of the weaknesses that I saw was that narration is hitting you, and it's hitting every person. The way that I put it, it was like someone made an art house film, a theme film, and someone came in and said, this needs to appeal to a mass audience a little bit, and not all the way. Right. But the action scenes, everything that it did, it seemed like, because it was afraid that the audience wasn't going to get it. Like there are times where he is saying these, he literally is like, the sins of my father, the sins of my father.
Yeah, it's kind of hitting the nail on the head.
It is in some big spots, which, you know what, like, if people are able to get something out of this movie because of that, great, but I felt it was a little on the nose.
Yeah, I'd say that. My biggest issue, because like, before I go back to the positives, because there were so many positives of the movie that I want to talk about.
I kind of, go ahead, because I'm about ready to talk about some stuff
Yeah,
too.
because there's so many positives I can talk about the movie, but I do want to say, like, I felt like the pacing of the movie was a little, it was slow and it was deliberate, and like, it was weird because there were some exciting moments in the movie, like you're on the moon and you're being chased by space pirates and a dude gets shot in the helmet and dies on the spot, or you've got a flipping monkey that ripped a dude's face apart in the middle of a space station, outside of in between the moon and Mars, and it's like these things happen and some crazy stuff, and it just feels so slow at the same time. And I don't have a problem with a slow movie, but it was just a very strange pace that it went at for me. And that it was a movie that had some incredible, like, graphic moments, then just felt like it was dragging during certain points.
Yeah. I completely agree. Sorry, you can finish on that.
No, it's okay. Like, this is a discussion. I'm not dominating.
No. I mean, it's completely what you're saying. And for me, my issue with the pacing is a little bit different, but it's that there are slow movies, right? And there are movies that are deliberate and slow paced, and it works. And I think this movie, I felt like every action sequence in that movie they needed to commit to the ridiculously of it a little bit more. There are space pirates on the moon.
Yeah.
There is a monkey, exactly what you're saying. And to me, it was all like the monkey is very clear. Like, even like he's narrating his, like, I'm facing the primal rage that's inside me. It's like, okay, yeah, of course, okay, masculinity, we got it. But it's this thing where if you're going to do that, which is the most bizarre, dreamlike thing, take it out of reality. Obviously, he wants to keep it in reality to some respect because you need to make it somewhat related, especially when you're addressing some of these topics. But when this action was at its craziest, I felt like the suspense of the film was taken away.
Right.
And in its place was this just like, well, this is insane. So I think if he either leaned in an almost Mandy-esque way to the insanity of a freaking ape ripping people's faces off, and like that gruesomeness of it, I think that would have worked. Or had he toned it in the other direction, like I was in the shower thinking about this morning. If that moon confrontation was him, if that had been instead these pirates just kind of being on their sides, and then they start firing on the pirates immediately, because you're supposed to develop an antagonistic relationship with the space comm, and because that's what happens to him is it's him turning his back on what he's been taught by his father, turning his back on authority, and that's what this is about, right? That's why he needs to go in and kill the thing that killed those people. I mean, obviously they attacked him because, and that's also supposed to say that, like, oh, when you start rebelling against a system will try to take you back in.
Right.
But anyways, it was just all that stuff. The theme was there.
Yeah.
There just needed to be something to that action, or something that added at least more suspense that kept it. Because when it broke into those action moments, it felt jarring to me.
Right. It was a little jarring, and like, they did a lot to build the world and that, and they could have done a little more. But there were some really cool, like, little things that they did.
Yes.
This is a sci-fi movie that painted a very hyper-realistic picture of what the world could be in a few years. Like, in the next few years. Like, with, because you didn't have so many of, like, the flashing lights and the jetpacks and hoverboards, but it was very much a grounded, like... Yeah. This is how this world is. Commercial flights to the moon. Yeah. Like commercialism on the moon. Like, like war zones on the moon because of like conflict between nations. There's so many things like there that was just like, it felt real, and it was obviously science fiction, and it was obviously like, very like out there, like with how science fiction is, but it felt real and almost dystopian in certain points where it was like not totally, maybe dystopian's the wrong word, but it felt very.
I see where you're going.
It was a very dreary look at sci-fi in this movie.
Exactly. Yeah. At its best.
Especially, and especially at the early parts, like during the first little portion before, like, from Earth to Mars. There's so many little details of this world that I feel like I could go back and just catch little things like that weren't highlighted. Like at the Moon Airport when they were driving away, and you see like in the background there's like a Las Vegas cowboy in the background being like a hologram of this Las Vegas cowboy in the background. Just things like that where it's like how much attention to detail was made in these certain sections to like highlight what the world is like there.
Yeah.
With this kind of realistic science fiction setting.
Yeah. It was simultaneously in the science aspect, right? It was the most, I think, one of the most unrealistic in terms of its, not the most unrealistic, but like at the end where he is going through the ring of
Captain
Neptune,
America
through the ring, and it's like, and it was at those moments though where I realized like it doesn't want you to think about this stuff as science, but what it does super well, like what you're saying, is that what would it actually look like from a societal level? I think the societal level it nails as far as like, of course capitalism would spread to the moon. Like of course, like and of course war would spread to the moon.
Yeah.
And of course, like what would actually happen is we would come to some awful reality, and then suddenly someone would freak out and be unable to stop it. And also, of course, that in that pursuit, we would cause a million other problems. And I think that is where it's at its like best, is when it's like really diving into that societal aspect of space travel at that scale. And I feel that everything else that science-wise, for the most part, is so exaggerated. Like when they pull out and it's like the International Space International Space
Antenna.
I
think it was the International Space.
I laughed. I was like, that's ridiculous. And I think I mentioned this to Ryan when I talked to him a little bit after about this, was just that I said it was like in terms of story, it was like a 70s science fiction movie, and that everything that could be ridiculous about it was ridiculous and in its story.
Right.
But then it frames it all in this really dark, morbid way. It really attacks a lot of the common tropes of masculinity. I don't think you can have a movie about space that isn't in some way talking about colonialism. And I think it is doing that a little bit with the moon and such. But anyways, yeah.
It was a very cool
interesting.
Thing. Very cool. And I think the most important thing to talk about, I mean, obviously there's so much with like the cinematography and the color that was so gorgeous in this movie. Like the shots, like the way like Brad Pitt was illuminated. Like even that opening shot where it did like the pan around like the sun's light and the color just changed, like the palette like shifted as it was like panning around it. And then just like being on Mars and the orange and the yellows like being lit around. And then when he's going by Neptune and the blues hit his face, it was just, the color in this film was just incredible. And that shot right before when he gets out of the underground lake at Mars and he's walking straight towards the camera and the silhouette, and it's his silhouette walking forward, and it's just all that orange. It's just gorgeous. But I think the most important thing that needs to be talked about is the acting from Brad Pitt in this movie, and just talking about him and talking about Brad Pitt and the year he's having right now. Did you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I have not been able to yet. I had every plan on it and just it never came around.
So it's just looking at that, because we got two very strong
from what I hear and what I saw, like it's
Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was a show stealer for that movie. He absolutely knocked it out of the park. And now we have Ad Astra, where he's the leading man of this movie, and it's just, again, he puts in a great performance, maybe a little nail on the head.
But I think that goes when it's a one-man band, really. Like there are other characters in that, but it's him. I don't think it was his acting.
No,
that
I don't think so.
that was the hitting the hammer on the head. I think it was a lot of the
script.
writing. Yeah.
It was the script.
Exactly.
It was the writing, and I think Brad Pitt, like even though there was that writing where it was he
sold
head,
it. Yeah.
he knocked it out of the park in this movie again. And you got to question: is Brad Pitt a front runner for this upcoming award season with both Ad Astra and for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I would not be surprised. I think this is a prime Oscar movie.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the. There's a lot of movies that go into those Oscar award seasons because they're incredible and they're very odd and few people have seen them. And this feels like something that is treading that perfect line between popularity, which obviously Oscars wants, and more that they've actually seen the movie because it's really fun if you go read some anonymous Oscar voter stuff. But I don't know I think it definitely has a chance. And Brad Pitt by far, like his there was a moment in that movie. I've been trying to think about it. The way he tackles that inner conflict,
right, with
how he feels about his father. I mean, like, just having disagreements with a father figure. It's captured so well, just in this movie in general. But the way that he goes about it is very like, I am a man. I am very, I'm organized. I'm structured, in that traditional masculine sense. But also, okay, what can I learn from this whole situation? Mm-hmm. And that reflection, I feel like, is overall, I think, pretty successful. And,
I think so.
Really, really, I mean, you do not have this movie. This movie sucks if he isn't.
Yeah.
If his acting is not at the front and center.
Yeah. I think this movie, its strong points are very much carried by the gorgeous cinematography and by Brad Pitt's performance. And without those things, I feel like the movie falls apart. And even without Brad Pitt's performance, a movie can't hold itself on just its gorgeous cinematography, because then it just becomes one of those boring art house films that people get mad at me for liking. It has some incredible. I think this movie has some incredible strengths, like just fantastic strong points, like with its, like I said, Brad Pitt's performance, the cinematography of the film. But then it has its low points, and I don't think the rest of the film, besides those things, holds up as strongly as it could. Where like with the writing of the film, I don't think it holds up without like an actor as talented as Brad Pitt.
As I was writing my notes about this, I literally at one point just had the thought, making movies is freaking hard.
It is.
Getting that stuff, that theming, that working that throughout in a way where at the end of it you look back and you're like, yeah, that was nice and subtle. Like that must be so hard because
it must be so difficult. I know, you're absolutely right.
That speaks for the strengths of this movie. It also speaks for the weaknesses, I think.
Mm-hmm. It definitely does, and it really brings those into the forefront. So I think it was good, but going into it, when we're hearing comments such as "this is Interstellar but better," and like when I was getting texted by my friend about how this is the exact kind of movie that you would critique, and it's like you get really high up, and then it's like, oh,
it felt like an art house film that someone made to sell blockbusters.
Yes,
like it felt to me like the movie that my parents would see and be like, this is art.
It does.
This is art.
It really does. Yeah. It's the kind of movie that I hear so many people telling me like, this is fantastic. It's like, it's okay.
Yeah, it's good. Like
it's good.
I will watch that again, and I'm sure I'll probably like it more the second time.
I will. My brother is out on his mission right now, like on his LDS mission, and it's a movie that I would say put on your watch list for when you get home. You need to watch this, kind of think about it. What are your thoughts?
Yep.
For like whether he likes it or not, it's a movie I think it would be worth him seeing. So, final verdicts. Where out of a scale of 1 to 10, where do you rate Ad Astra? It's a tough one.
Yeah, because I think I'm gonna have to say a 7.
A 7?
And I think it's just, I appreciate what it was trying to go for.
Mm-hmm.
And I always respect some good slow scenes. That shot of him in the Mars bunker speaking into the microphone is some Lynch-looking stuff, some David Lynch-looking stuff. So I'm there for that. And so yeah, that cinematography is brilliant. But yeah, I'd say a 7, light 7.
Light 7. I'll go around 7.5. I think it was a really strong movie. I think it was a really strong movie at points, but that there's so many little factors that if it was taken away, the movie wouldn't hold up. So it's good, almost great, but those little things just hold it back from being a truly great film. And at this point, it's just an okay, good film.
Yeah.
So that's all we got for today. It's about time for us to wrap up.
Absolutely.
We're running low on time here.
Cool.
So next week we're going to see Joker. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, we got our tactical vests ready to go. We're ready to go in.
I was like, should we see this the first week?
We got our SWAT gear ready to keep us safe. Mandatory, obviously. The whole audience is prepared. Just better safe than sorry. And there's interesting discourse about that movie too that we'll be breaking down next week as well. Just a lot of the news coming out of the movie and its build up. So next week, join us for that. It's gonna be a lot of fun with that one.
Sure will.
And once again, I'm Dane Salmons. I'm with Luke Andersen. You can subscribe to our Facebook page, which is the Red Carpet Podcast, and you can listen to us on Spotify and hopefully Spotify.
Yeah, we'll see where this goes.
yeah, but we will have our audio version out, and please just subscribe to our channels, subscribe to our Facebook, our YouTube. Those links will be available on our social media pages, and we thank you so much for being able to join us and listen in and just be able to let us be able to do this a silly little project of ours.
It's fun.
All right. Thank you again, and we'll see you guys next week.